Hello, and welcome to my channel. I'm Margaret, and here I share real-life stories from my friends at the nursing home. When he laughed at my paintings and called them clutter, I moved them into the garage. Then one sold for $12,000. He didn't even look up when he said it, just waved his hand toward the canvas propped on the dining room wall like he was shooing away a fly. Can we stop leaving this junk lying around? It's starting to feel like a yard sale in here. I looked at the painting, a muted coastal landscape, full of fog and memory, one I'd spent 3 weeks layering and glazing, and all I could manage was a shallow breath. We'd been married 21 years. You'd think by now I'd be immune to the small humiliations. But no. Somehow, they still found soft places to land. I carried that painting down to the garage. Not the basement. That was my little corner, my refuge. But the dusty, oil-stained garage. I propped it behind the lawn chairs, next to the leaf blower. It felt like burying something. My name is Elaine. I'm 47. For 16 years, I taught art at the local high school. Acrylics, color theory, the basics. Kids didn't always care, but some did. I miss their bright little rebellions. I miss having a place that needed me. I was let go during the district cuts. The kind where the emails start with, "We regret to inform you," and end with HR asking for your keycard. They kept the football program, of course. Since then, I've been home. My husband, Greg, calls it taking some time to reset. That's generous. In truth, I spent the first 6 months folding laundry I'd already folded, checking job sites that haven't listed an art position in 2 years, and baking banana bread for neighbors who never answered the door. Greg sells cars, Mercedes-Benz. He wears Italian shoes and has veneers he flashes like business cards. At first, I admired his ambition. Now it feels like I'm living with a commercial. He's changed. Or maybe I have. The man who once snuck peanut butter cups into movie theaters with me now arranges our living room throw pillows by color family. He talks in numbers, lease rates, quarterly goals, impressions per click. When I started painting again, at first just to feel my hands making something real, he barely noticed. I'd take a brush down to the basement while he watched ESPN upstairs, and I'd stay there, breathing in turpentine and loneliness, like it was church. It's a cold basement, unfinished, with low ceilings and grey concrete floors. But there's a sliver of light that cuts through the window well around 3 in the afternoon. I angle my easel toward it like a sunflower. I use old supplies, paints from my classroom days, brushes with bristles that splay like bad haircuts. But I make do. I work on cheap canvases from the craft store clearance bin, sometimes cardboard. It doesn't matter. I paint what I remember. Windswept beaches from childhood summers, rusty swing sets from forgotten parks, the hollow blue of early morning. Nothing grand, just fragments of feeling. I never intended to show anyone. One Saturday afternoon, Greg had some clients over for drinks. He hosts these little soirees now and then, hoping to charm doctors or property developers into upgrading their SUVs. I came upstairs to grab some lemon wedges and overheard him holding court in the kitchen. Yeah, she used to teach. Now she paints these little mood things, kind of like adult coloring books. Laughter. I keep telling her, maybe open an Etsy store, at least clear some garage space. I didn't say anything, just backed down the stairs, lemonless, and sat in my cold chair until my fingers stopped shaking. We don't talk much anymore, not really. We exchange logistics. What's for dinner? Who's picking up the dry cleaning? But there's no warmth, no shared jokes. He started moving my canvases out of the basement without asking. First it was the ones leaning against the far wall, then the ones under the stairs. said he needed space for storage. I found one of them, a soft, pale portrait of my mother, covered in cobwebs behind a cooler of La Croix. I didn't cry. Not then. Not where he could see. But that night, while he snored beside me, mouth open like a careless apology, I opened my laptop and typed "online art forums" into the search bar. I found a small group, painters, mostly women, posting under usernames like Brush Mama and Quiet Canvas. They shared pictures of their work, offered gentle feedback, swapped tips on shipping and framing. On a whim, I created an account. I uploaded a photo of the beach painting, the one he called Clutter. I didn't expect anything. But within an hour, someone commented, "There's so much stillness in this. It made me cry." That one sentence did something to me, stirred something I'd long buried. The next morning, I had 3 messages. One was from a woman named Sabine. She ran a small gallery in Asheville, said she loved my use of light, asked if I had more pieces. My heart beat so loud, I thought Greg might hear it through the walls. I didn't reply to Sabine for 2 days. Not because I didn't want to, because I was afraid. Afraid it was a scam. Afraid it was real. Afraid of wanting something again. I hovered over the message like it was a live wire. Then finally, at 2 a.m., with Greg's back turned and the room glowing from my screen, I wrote, "Thank you. I have more. I'll send photos if you'd like." I sent 5 images. Nothing flashy. Just iPhone shots taken in the basement with shaky hands. She wrote back within hours, said there was a softness to my brushwork, a grief that didn't ask for pity. Her words made my throat close. She asked if I'd consider selling. She asked if I had a name for the collection. She asked if I'd ever thought of exhibiting. I said yes. To all of it. By day, I lived quietly in my house, cooked, cleaned, folded things, answered to Greg. But at night, I came alive in secret. I packaged 3 pieces and mailed them to her gallery. I had to drive across town to the FedEx because I didn't want Greg asking questions. He thought I was grocery shopping. I said there was a long line. Sabine wired $700 for the first one, then $950 for the second. The third, the coastal one, the Clutter, sold to a collector in Oregon for $12,000. When she emailed me the receipt, I sat on the basement floor and cried so hard I pulled a muscle in my side. It wasn't about the money, it was proof. Proof that I wasn't crazy, that I mattered, that my hands could still make something that meant something. Greg didn't notice the money. We have separate accounts, a byproduct of years of quiet resentment. He noticed me smiling more, though. Commented on it over dinner. "You're chipper lately. Did someone finally offer you that librarian job?" He said it with a grin. Not cruelty, but the way he said "finally," like I'd been foolish to hope, like he was still the only one allowed to succeed in this house. "No," I said. "Just doing some things for myself." He grunted and poured more wine. I kept selling. Quietly. Consistently. Sabine offered to fly me out for a show, said she could line up a solo exhibition. I told her not yet, not until I was ready, not until I could stand in that gallery without shaking. Instead, I painted faster, harder, with purpose. My basement became sacred. I started locking the door. Greg didn't ask why. He was too busy planning a golf trip with some executives from corporate. He was thriving. On the outside, at least. Nice suits, flashy watches, flirting with the woman who ran the front desk at his dealership. I saw the texts. He never bothered to hide them well. I wasn't angry, just tired. So I painted. He moved the rest of my older paintings to the shed. said we had too much junk in the basement, and it was starting to smell like glue. I didn't argue. I let him drag them out. He left them there uncovered, damp air curling the canvas edges, spiders nesting in the corners. It should have broken me. Instead, I went downstairs, opened a new canvas, and began something that felt like fire. A red horizon, charcoal trees, shadows with open mouths. I named it Hunger. The day Sabine called to confirm the solo show was the day Greg came home ranting about how someone keyed his leased BMW. He stood in the kitchen, waving his arms, cursing about paint scratches, while I held the phone gently to my chest, hiding my smile. Do you know how much that's going to cost me in end-of-term damage fees? Christ, Elaine, are you even listening? I looked at him, really looked. The man in front of me was shiny and brittle, like lacquer over cardboard. And suddenly, I felt something shift, something final. I didn't want to explain myself to him anymore. Didn't want to shrink so he could shine. Didn't want to keep earning space in a house I helped build. That night, while he was watching YouTube clips of luxury watches, I opened a new folder on my laptop and titled it Exit Plan. I made the plan slowly, carefully, the way you might trace the outline of a door you've just realized was always there. First, I called the gallery and confirmed the exhibition date, 2 months out. Second, I opened a separate savings account, quietly funneled a portion of each painting sale into it. Third, I rented a small studio apartment on the edge of town, with high ceilings, cracked white walls, and a window that caught the evening light like a secret. I signed the lease under my maiden name. The deposit came from the Oregon sale. The painting Greg had called That Beach Blob. I never told Sabine about him, never said his name. She didn't ask, but I think she knew. She once said over the phone, "There's a quiet ache in your work." It feels like someone who's kept a lot unsaid, and I had to swallow hard before replying. I began packing little by little, things he wouldn't miss. A coffee mug from my mother, my favorite cardigan, a sketch pad I'd hidden behind the dryer. I stored them in the trunk of my car, under a blanket. He never checked. By then, we were practically ghosts in the same house, passing each other like old furniture. He started coming home later, sometimes not at all. I didn't ask. He didn't explain. The silence between us was well-fed and content. I think he thought he'd won, that he'd bored me into submission. Let him think that. One Saturday morning, Greg held one of my canvases up in the garage. He'd been clearing out space for some new grill he bought. "This one," he said, "you actually put effort into. Shame it's just collecting dust." He chuckled and leaned it against the garbage bin. I said nothing. I took a picture of it later and titled it Collection Bin. It sold a week later for $3,500. When the exhibition week arrived, I told Greg I was attending a friend's weekend retreat. He didn't look up from his phone. "Fine, bring back wine or whatever." I packed my things. The car was already loaded. Before I left, I walked into the garage and looked at the walls. Empty now. All my canvases gone. All my work erased from his view. Except one. The very first one. The one I'd hidden behind the leaf blower. I left it there on purpose. The opening night of the show was unlike anything I'd ever known. The gallery was small but warm, its white walls glowing under soft light. My name, Elaine Harper, was printed in black lettering on the glass. Small Ruptures, New Work by Elaine Harper. People came, strangers, couples, collectors. They lingered, asked questions, stood quietly in front of pieces I thought only I understood. Sabine touched my arm halfway through the evening. You've arrived, you know. I blinked at her. No, I said softly. I finally left. The next morning, I sent Greg an email. It was brief. Director. Greg, I've moved out. I've taken only what's mine. You can keep the house, the wine fridge, and your meticulously arranged living room. I've found a space that fits me. Don't contact me unless it's absolutely necessary. Elaine. I attached a photo. It was of my name on the gallery window. Just that. No caption. An hour later, he called. I let it ring. He texted, "What the hell is this? Where are you? You can't just walk out." I stared at the screen. Typed. Deleted. Then finally I replied, "Watch me." He didn't answer after that. Not for a few days. I think he expected me to come back. To apologize. To explain myself like I always had. But I didn't. In my new apartment, the one-bedroom walk-up with peeling radiator paint and a window that whistled in the wind, I slept better than I had in years. No footsteps pacing above me, no passive sighs over dinner, no one reminding me, wordlessly, that I was a disappointment. It was quiet, but not empty. I set up my easel by the window, hung 3 of my smaller canvases above the radiator, left the closet half full on purpose. Space for more of me. A week after the gallery opening, Sabine called. "We're getting inquiries from another collector. She saw your work on Instagram and asked if you'd consider a commission. Pays well." I laughed. I couldn't help it. "You okay?" she asked. "Yes," I said, still smiling. "I think I actually am." The commission paid $8,000, enough to cover 2 months' rent, supplies, and the small silver ring I bought for myself on a whim. I hadn't worn jewelry in years. Greg always said it wasn't my thing. Apparently it is. One afternoon, I walked past the dealership where Greg worked. I was downtown to drop off a painting at a local cafe that had offered me wall space. I almost didn't look, but there he was, standing by a sleek black sedan, fake laughing with some man in a tie. I paused across the street. He looked the same, hair sharp, posture proud. But he looked smaller too. Or maybe I was taller. He didn't see me. Even if he had, I doubt he would have recognized me in my denim jacket, smudged fingers, and sky-colored scarf. I kept walking. Then came the call, from the house line. I didn't answer. Let it go to voicemail. When I finally listened, his voice was tight, controlled. "Elaine, I've been thinking about things. About us. I didn't realize you were struggling. I just wish you'd talk to me. This doesn't feel like you. Anyway, I still have some of your stuff. Call me back, okay?" No apology. Just confusion that he'd lost control of the story. I deleted the voicemail. That weekend, the Oregon collector emailed me. She'd framed the coastal painting, the one from behind the leaf blower, in antique driftwood. Said it hung in her beach house now. Said her husband cried when he saw it. I sat with that email for a long time, because here was a man, somewhere across the country, who'd seen in my work what my own husband never had in me: depth, feeling, worth. I didn't need Greg to validate me, but it was a strange, healing ache to know someone else had seen me, really seen me, through the cracks. Sabine told me the next show would be in Atlanta. She wanted to take small ruptures on the road. I said yes. And for the first time, I signed the agreement under my full name, Elaine Margaret Harper. The Margaret was for my mother. She used to paint too, little florals on cracked teacups and envelopes. She never called it art. She called it keeping her hands busy. But I remember her smile when she worked. The peace on her face. That's what I carry with me now. That and the quiet knowledge that I was never Just anything. Not just a wife, not just a teacher, not just a hobbyist. I didn't go back to the house, not even once. Greg kept texting every few weeks, like he was fishing. First polite, "You left a few boxes in the attic. Want me to drop them off?" Then manipulative. "I miss the way you used to talk to me about things. The house is quiet without you." Then resentful. "I hope this little phase is worth it." I didn't reply to any of them. Instead, I sent Sabine a new batch of paintings and titled the collection Unanswered Messages. They sold out in 3 days. My studio apartment evolved. I added a second easel, started teaching a weekly class at a local art center, just a dozen people, all ages, all fumbling with brushes and doubt. They reminded me of my students. I loved it. I loved the way I didn't have to ask permission to speak, or explain why I cared so much about light and shadow. At night, I made tea, read poetry, sometimes danced in the living room in mismatched socks. It was a small life, but it was mine. I ran into one of Greg's friends at the grocery store, Dan. He used to come over for those smug dinner parties, always bragging about his investment properties. He almost didn't recognize me, said I looked different. "What are you up to these days?" he asked, scanning the granola in my cart like it held the answer. I smiled. "I paint." He blinked. "Still?" I looked him dead in the eye. Number professionally. He gave that tight smile men give when they don't understand how they lost the script. "Well, tell Greg I said hi." I don't talk to Greg. And I walked away. Some days, I look at the photo I took from my gallery window, the one I sent him in that final email. I keep it on my phone, like armor, because it's proof, not just of what I made, but of what I walked away from. There's power in that, the quiet kind, the kind that doesn't need to shout or slam doors, the kind that simply leaves. A few weeks ago, Sabine asked if I wanted to speak at a panel for emerging women artists over 40. I laughed out loud. "Me? I'm still figuring this out." She just smiled through the phone. "You already did the hardest part, Elaine. You started. Last week, I painted something I've been holding inside for years. It's not pretty. It's jagged and sharp and burns at the edges. But it's true. And it's mine." I signed it with a steady hand. Not with initials. Not in the corner. But bold across the bottom. Elaine Margaret Harper. Turns out I didn't need space in his life. I just needed space to create my own.